That afternoon, a 6-year-old boy named Dennis Martin went behind a bush to hide from his family. It was a game, a prank. The other children jumped out and surprised the adults. Dennis never came out. 1,400 searchers combed 56 square miles. The FBI was called. 60 Green Berets were deployed. A witness heard a sickening scream. A disheveled man was seen running through the trees. The FBI held their files on this case for 53 years before releasing them. No trace of Dennis Martin has ever been found. He would be 62 years old today. The Smokies have always been a place where people vanish. Long before roads or rangers, the Cherokee spoke of valleys where the world grew thin, where a person could step off the trail and never return. Settlers came later, bringing their own stories, of wild men in the hollows, of screams echoing through the mist, of searchers finding nothing but silence. The mountains themselves are ancient, worn down by 500 million years of wind and rain, older than the rivers that cut their deep, secret folds. Dense thickets of rhododendron form walls so thick they swallow sound and sight. Fog rises fast, rolling in without warning, swallowing ridgelines and turning daylight into gray confusion. The ground drops away in sudden ravines. Streams run cold and swift, fed by storms that can drop inches of rain in a single afternoon. Even the most experienced hiker can lose their way 10 feet from the trail. Every year, the park logs dozens of missing persons, some found, some never seen again. In this place, the line between lost and gone can be as thin as a breath, and the land itself seems to conspire to keep its secrets. For those who enter, the Smokies offer no promises. Dennis Martin was 6 years old, with a birthday only days away. He was small for his age, quiet, sometimes a little behind the other boys, but determined to keep up. This trip was his first overnight hike, a family tradition for Father's Day, passed from grandfather to son. Dennis wore a red t-shirt, green shorts, and low-cut Oxford shoes. His father, Bill, kept a close watch as they crossed the ridges, careful with every step, knowing how quickly a child could stumble in the undergrowth. The Martins moved as a tight group. Dennis, his older brother Douglas, their father Bill, and grandfather Clyde. They followed the trails from Cades Cove up to Russell Field, then to the high grass of Spence Field, where the mountain laurel blooms in June. The boys joined children from another family, plotting a prank to surprise the adults. Dennis, always eager to be part of the game, slipped behind a bush at the edge of the meadow. There was no warning, no shout. One moment, Dennis was there, red shirt bright against the green. In the next, he was gone. In a place where the woods can swallow a voice, a 6-year-old vanished while his father stood only yards away. The meadow at Spence Field stood silent in the late afternoon. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Dennis Martin slipped behind a screen of laurel, his red shirt a last flash of color before the green swallowed him whole. The other boys darted out, laughing, but Dennis did not reappear. 5 minutes passed. Bill Martin called his son's name, his voice rising above the hush of the mountain. No answer. He searched the thicket, then broke into a run, down the Appalachian Trail toward Little Bald, then back, then west to Russell Field and back again, covering miles in desperate sweeps. Each step brought only more silence. As the search widened, the sky turned. Dark clouds rolled over the ridgeline. By late afternoon, a storm burst open, dropping 3 inches of rain in just a few hours. Water pooled in the hollows, streams swelled, and the air turned cold. Any footprints or scent trails vanished beneath the downpour. With no radio or phone, the Martins faced a hard choice. Dennis's grandfather, Clyde, set off alone to hike the 9 miles back to Cades Cove Ranger Station. Hours passed while Bill scoured the woods. It was 8:28 in the evening before rangers were finally notified. By then, night had fallen, and the forest had closed around every trace of a missing child. By dawn on June 15th, the Smokies filled with strangers moving through fog and undergrowth, an army of searchers summoned by fear and hope. Rangers, firefighters, college students, and entire families from nearby towns joined hands with the Martins. The numbers grew by the hour, 30 men at first, then 200, then more than 1,000. At its peak, over 1,400 people combed the wilderness, a human tide sweeping across 56 square miles of ridgelines, hollows, and creek beds. Helicopters circled above, their blades stirring the mist. Bloodhounds were unleashed, noses pressed to the moss and mud. On foot and horseback, the searchers pressed on, calling Dennis's name into the silence. The National Park Service took command, but soon the search drew in the FBI and the U.S. Army. 60 Green Berets from Fort Bragg arrived, men trained for jungle warfare, now fanned out in tight formation through Appalachian thickets. They moved with discipline, mapping ravines and crawling through rhododendron tunnels. Still, the woods gave up nothing. Not a single fiber from Dennis's red shirt, not a shoe, not a scrap of cloth, not a footprint that could be trusted. The official tally reached 13,420 man-hours. The only trace, one set of prints, was dismissed as belonging to a Boy Scout. The dogs found no scent. The rain had wiped the slate clean, but the scale of the operation defied belief. How could so many eyes, so much effort, find nothing at all? In the heart of the Smokies, a 6-year-old had vanished so completely that even an army could not bring him back. 7 days after Dennis vanished, a family from Tennessee walked a remote trail near Rowan's Creek, miles from Spence Field. Harold Key, the father, would later recall a sound that froze him, a scream, sharp and desperate, cutting through the green hush of the woods. His children thought it might be an animal, but Key saw a figure moving between the trees. Not a bear, but a man, filthy and wild-eyed, slipping through the undergrowth as if trying not to be seen. Key believed the stranger was carrying something over his shoulder. He reported what he had witnessed, but the details stayed buried for a year. The searchers in the Smokies had been looking for a lost boy. Now, for the first time, there was reason to fear someone else had been in those woods. 16 years after Dennis vanished, another rumor slipped out of the woods. In 1985, an unnamed ginseng hunter said he had found the scattered bones of a small child in a hollow near Tremont, far from Spence Field, but close to where a child's footprint had once been found. Fear of poaching charges kept him silent for years. By the time he finally led rangers to the site, the forest had reclaimed everything. No bones, no clothing, no trace. The official record barely acknowledges the episode. Another lead, another empty patch of ground, and the silence of the Smokies deepened. For half a century, the official record stayed locked away. The FBI files, 133 pages in all, remained sealed, their contents shielded under layers of legal exemption. In 2022, after repeated requests, the government released the file at last. Even then, key passages were blacked out, witness names erased, entire sections on the Harold Key sighting reduced to thick bars of ink. The question of abduction, examined in detail, yielded no final answer, no evidence to confirm a kidnapping, but nothing to dismiss it either. The National Park Service now admits that Dennis Martin's disappearance forced a reckoning. Their own emergency manager calls it the case that rewrote search and rescue doctrine across the United States. Yet, after 53 years, the heart of the mystery remains hidden, buried in redactions and in the silence of the mountains. 53 years later, the files remain mostly sealed. 13,000 search hours, 60 Green Berets, and no trace. Only silence and redaction. The Smokies still swallow secrets. Until the record opens, the question lingers. How does a child vanish in daylight, and who decides what we're allowed to know?